what's up, everyone? Sam here from Wall Street Mastermind. I'm back with another client interview for you guys today. Um, Today, I have a very special client. This client is someone who came to us, I think, at this point, 14 months ago, at the start of his junior year. And he's had a hell of a roller coaster ride over the last year. I think he would agree with that statement. And,
Yeah,
we tried to help him navigate the recruiting process. And we had to get really creative given his unconventional background. And I would say we pulled out all the stops and ultimately we made it happen. So, most importantly, though, this client was super persistent and he never gave up, which I would say was ultimately, honestly, one of the biggest reasons why he was successful. And a few weeks ago, or at this point, I don't know, might have been over a month. We had trouble getting this interview scheduled for you guys, but long story short, he finally secured his summer 2020 internship, and so at one of his top choice firms, and I wanted to get him on here to just share his story with you guys, right? And give those of you who are still grinding it out some motivation and inspiration. Okay, so his name is Michael, and Michael, thank you for spending some time with us today and sharing your experiences.
yeah, of
And
course.
before we dive in, can we just give everyone some background on who you are? Like, what kind of candidate are you on paper? Like, where do you go to school? What do you major in? Whatever type of background information you want to tell people.
Yeah, of course. So I go to a pretty good school in the South. It's a top 15 university, and I majored in a STEM-related field in computer science. And honestly, on paper, I didn't really seem like a traditional investment banking candidate, mainly because I had a lot of quantitative uh, stuff going for me. And I was just mainly interested in investment banking since I kind of wanted to have that more like qualitative side. And on top of that, I wanted to go into something that could help me eventually help with the capital raising side, or in addition to that, like the financing side of like helping with the business. And I guess more specifically, my dad's business.
Got it. And would you say your school is it like a semi-target school? Would you say?
Yeah, I would say it's a pretty strong semi-target, and it's honestly gotten a lot better over the past few years.
Okay. Okay. Cool. And so take us back to kind of the beginning. Like when you first came to me again, I think it was the start of your junior year. Is that right? Do I have that
Yeah.
right? It's been a while.
Mhm. Mhm.
um, and what were you struggling with at the time?
Right. I had no idea how to even go about the networking process. And for me, the behaviorals were kind of tough in the sense that I wasn't quite sure how to spin a lot of my stories.
Mm-hmm.
And being a transfer student kind of made it even harder since I was in the College of Business previously and I just transferred into the College of Engineering. Kind of making it really hard for me to spin like I guess, an eloquent story. For the most part, my story had so many twists and turns that it was honestly like kind of impossible for me to think of how to kind of form that. So Sam was really helpful in that part.
Got it. So basically, because one, you transfer schools, and that was after what, your first year of college?
Right.
Okay, so you transfer schools, and then two, you also switch majors. And the major switch happened when you transferred or after you transferred?
Right. So I transferred into a different major. So right at when I transferred.
Okay, but you were transferring from business to engineering and not the other way around. And so the
Right.
natural question was like, well, if you want to do banking, why did you transfer to engineering, basically?
Right.
Got it. Okay, so that made things pretty tricky. Um, what about on like the technical interview side? Like, how are you with your technical knowledge?
I felt like I was pretty decent with like the basic accounting, equity value, enterprise value, and DCF questions. At that time, I honestly didn't really know anything about accretion dilution questions, IRR calculations, or LBOs and merger models just in general.
Hmm.
And I felt like when I came to this program, um, you definitely kind of narrowed it down and made sure like what was important for me to study. I guess just figuring out that like at the end of the day, as long as you have your behaviorals nailed down, Um, that's honestly the most important part for most of the bulge brackets. I will say that I did have to study a little extra on the technicals once I decided to interview for firms like PJT. Uh, they're definitely pretty hardcore on technicals to the point where you have to know a lot of specifics and even like be familiar with like things like a 10K report.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Got it. Okay. But at the time, though, prior to working with us, you had already applied to several banks on your own, right?
Right, right. I think I had applied to around, I think I applied to 3 or 4 banks at the time, with Goldman and Morgan Stanley being uh, to one of two of the four.
Okay. And how did that pan out for you? Like, did you get interviews? How far did you make it?
I don't think I got a single response, if I'm being honest, and and I actually think I missed the deadline for one of them too. I think I missed the deadline for JP Morgan, and I was pretty bummed out.
Got it. Got it. Okay. So that's probably part of the reason why you decided to get some
Right.
extra help
Oh,
done because you were doing it on your own, but you weren't really seeing the results that you wanted.
yeah, I would say so. And on top of that, I didn't really know how to kind of approach high reviews. And just coming to the program, I think that you've helped me a lot, like in terms of understanding like the psychology behind interviewing with cameras, like, and even outside of that, just kind of like appealing to people and like kind of saying what they want to hear, but like I guess a little more so like forming the best possible answers.
Got it. Got it. Okay. And what made you want to kind of go down this investment banking route? Like, what attracts you or what motivates you for, wanting to get into something that's so competitive and so selective?
Right. I guess it really just came down to having a career path that gave me a lot of optionality. I didn't want to go into software engineering mainly because I was kind of scared that it would pigeonhole me in something I wasn't necessarily in love with.
Mm,
And I like the idea of just being able to go to somewhere for 2 years and then either staying there or even going off to a completely different path.
got it. Okay. Okay. So the exit opportunity and kind of the flexibility and having the ability to kind of control your own destiny, so to speak.
Right.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, it's very common. We see that all the time with a lot of students who want to do banking. Like exit opportunity is definitely a big reason. It's up there, probably like number one or number two. So that makes a lot of sense. So what were you doing then to like prepare yourself for the recruiting process before you found Wall Street Mastermind? Like what other resources were you using?
Right. So I used mainly um, I want to say like breaking into Wall Street, the M&I 400Q, and my school's Career Center directed program. To be quite frank, I don't think that my Career Center program was that helpful. For the most part, they kind of just suggested we read the M&I 400Q, and I just had no idea to kind of network with others. I felt like I wasn't either formatting my networking. I wasn't either networking correctly or there's something going wrong.
Hmm. Okay. Got it. So went to your career center for help, which a lot of students tend to do, right? Because it's easy, it's readily available, it's on campus, it's free, right?
Mhm.
And it's
Well,
supposedly
pay
it's
for it.
supposed. Sorry.
I pay for it technically with tuition.
That's true. That's true. But it's and like it's their job to help you guys find jobs technically, right? And so
Right,
because I always get a question from people around, well, why can't I just go to the career center? Like they can help me do mock interviews and they can help me fix my resume and that's pretty much all I need, right? I mean, what do you say to people like that?
well, I say that like there's a lot more to it than that. The networking aspect of just recruiting for investment banking is probably one of the most crucial parts to the process. And if you have no idea how to even go about that, you're in for like a long ride just because you're not going to be able to even find the right people to talk to and just kind of figuring out like early on that you have to, it's just the numbers game is really important too.
Mm.
Because at the end of the day, if you're not emailing like, I don't know, 50 to 100 people throughout the process, like you're not going to really have any contacts.
I mean, you probably did a lot more than that, right?
Yeah. I had probably sent upwards of like, I don't know, 400, 500.
Yeah, yeah. I think most of our clients probably do at least several hundred people when it comes to the outreach. And so, yeah, 50 and 50 to 100, I would say that's more than probably the vast majority of students do, but it's honestly not that much, right?
Hmm.
For the grand scheme of things. So, okay, so you're reading these guides, you're going to the career center. Um, why wasn't it enough for you? Like, why did you even bother looking for more help? Or like, where were they falling short for you?
Well, for me, I'd say on the resume end, I didn't really like the formatting that my school kind of gave me. And I felt like there was a better way to, um, I guess format my resume so I can pack on more things. And that was one of my concerns as well. And on top of that, I just had a really like hard time kind of creating like a coherent story with all those twists and turns from transferring from business to engineering. And I just wasn't even quite sure how to even go about it. And on top of that, I had already missed the application deadline for 2 banks, and the recruiting timeline was kind of winding down. So I was starting to get a little worried. And even outside of that, I just wasn't getting a lot of, I guess, success with my networking. So I wasn't quite sure if it was, the email, what I'm actually putting into my email in terms of content, or if it was just a numbers game. And I just kind of wanted some guidance on that end.
Got it. Okay. So then, how did you find us? Can you tell everyone kind of like how we met?
Right, right. So actually, one of my best friends from my hometown uh, was a client of yours, and he actually convinced me, to come on. He was telling me that, hey, Sam's been really helpful throughout my process, and he actually helped me land UBS. So you should try to consider him if you're having some issues. And I guess I went along and did it, and ended up getting a good internship.
Got it. Got it. Okay. Yeah. No, you did. You came through a referral, which is those are my favorites because when my clients are referring their friends to me, it tells me that I'm doing something right. Right. Because nobody wants to screw over their friends, right?
Right.
um, okay, and so let's see here. So then you joined the program. Um, what do you feel like was the most helpful for you in terms of what you did here with Wall Street Mastermind? Like, what was different about what we did versus say what you were doing on your own prior to this?
I would say the biggest thing that was, well, actually, there's quite a few things that I think were really helpful. So I remember when I first came on, you had me do this kind of like thought experiment where I wrote up, where I think it was like this 10 or 11 page document for my behaviorals. And just like, I think it was more so to give you an understanding of our background, but that was just helpful in general for me to think about my story and how to even think about, what I'm going to say for each kind of like tell me about a time.
Hmm.
And even outside of that, I really liked how you gave us this networking template that we could use, copy and paste. I mean, it wasn't exactly what I put on, but it was just helpful to kind of have this, I guess, like have this template of multiple emails that I could send, for like, depending on the scenario, oh, this is an urgent scenario, or like this is like a first, like a cold email, something like that. And even more than that, I thought that when I got interviews, when you were offered to mock interview that was like probably one of the most important things for me early on. I just thought that getting mock interviewed kind of simulated that real, I guess, phone interview or like phone screen like environment. And honestly, that was huge when it actually came down to the interviews because I felt a lot more comfortable on my behaviorals and technicals.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Got it. So, I mean, you've done mock interviews with us, obviously, multiple times, but you've also done mock interviews probably with other people as well, right?
Right, right.
Like, who do you usually do your mock interviews with besides us? Is it just like upperclassmen, or what do you do?
Well, In the past, it was my peers in my class, but honestly, for the most part, we were just asking each other like basic M&I questions, and we weren't really sure how to, I guess, evaluate each other's behaviorals on the spot. It was more so just like another way of practicing with another person.
Got it. So basically, if it was a technical question, like you could just read the answers off the M&I guide. But if you guys are practicing your behavioral mocks with each other, there wasn't really like any sort of feedback loop because the people who you're mock interviewing with know pretty much as you do.
Right.
Okay. So I guess the only benefit of doing that then is you're just practicing what you're going to say and so that it comes out a little bit better. But if your answer is not good in the first place, it doesn't really matter how many times you practice, you're still practicing a bad answer, basically.
Right, right.
Got it. Okay. So then, like with our mock interviews, like what did you think of the feedback that you were able to get?
I liked how you told me like throughout my mock interview, like, or I guess more so at the end, like, hey, you need to have more eye contact, or like, you sound a little monotone. You need to like sound more upbeat, and that's still one of like the problems I have to this day.
Uh-huh.
It's kind of hard for me to sound like super super upbeat, and
Right.
I feel like it's definitely a factor that I would never have even thought of. My career center probably wouldn't have even told me that. They're just going to tell me like, hey, that's probably because you're from California, and like I don't know like how to respond to like things like that. And just having Sam kind of, point out some small nuances that, are inherently like part of my personality or who I am, that could potentially affect my chances was also really helpful.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And can you talk a little bit about like specifically what type of work that we do together on the behaviorals and on the technicals?
Yeah. So behavioral, on the behavioral end, after that little thought experiment, you'd spend like a few sessions just revising our behaviorals, until you thought there's like really good. And then when we were mock interviewing, you kind of make tweaks here and there if it didn't, I guess, line up or sound the way you would kind of expect it to. It was more so, I guess, a delivery thing where just practicing the delivery of your behaviorals was probably, I would say, almost as important as the content. And that was honestly one of my issues. I had kind of a hard time delivering what I wanted to say. And for the most part, I was kind of just memorizing everything word for word. And that was kind of tough too. And I think just kind of like breaking it up into bullet points was pretty helpful. And on the technical end, you had these modules that were pretty helpful when I was first looking through behaviorals. It definitely gave me a high level overview of everything I needed to know, ranging from like basic accounting to merger models and LBOs. And I definitely think that that's like a great start for someone who's just coming to IB.
Got it. Got it. Okay. So what would you say is like the biggest difference between, say, learning your technicals from someone like me versus, I don't know, just however you were doing it before, which I guess is just reading a guide on your own, right? Or that's probably how most people are typically doing it, right? Like, what's the biggest difference there?
I'd say just having access to a resource who's willing to, respond to questions that you have like almost any time is probably like a unparalleled. It's like something that, I can't really explain it. Like you have Google, right? But it's something that doesn't always give you the right answer you're looking for. And to have someone knowledgeable who's been in an industry who can just, spit out an answer almost immediately on what it is just really helpful. And
Right.
even outside of that, um, if I have like some modeling specific question or, some question that I just thought of randomly or, even a past interview related question, like it's sometimes kind of hard to just Google something like that. So I'd
Mm-hmm.
say that was like another big difference in terms of prepping up for technicals.
Mm, got it. And yeah, I mean, Google, the downside of Google is that it's useful for questions that you know you have, right?
Mhm.
But even then, like if you know you have a question, then you know you got to go look it up. And when you look it up, you might get a bunch of different search results. Maybe you open a bunch of tabs, you read through all of them, some might make sense, some might not, or maybe sometimes they say conflicting things, and you don't always end up with more clarity. Sometimes you end up even more confused after spending, a couple hours looking into something, right?
Hmm.
Is having someone who's an expert answer your question. Yeah, they can, like, I can answer all the questions that you have, but a lot of the times I think it's also about pointing out questions that you didn't even realize you had, right? Because
Right.
if you don't know something, you're not going to know that you have a question about it, right? And
Right.
you don't, then you're not going to go you're not going to go Google anything. You're not going to go ask anyone for help on that thing. But then if and when the interview comes and you get tested on that thing that you never asked about, that's when things kind of start to go south, right?
Right. Oh, and also I think that you like kind of outlined like a few set of behavioral questions that actually did show up in all my interviews. I think they're like your guaranteed questions, and
Mhm.
that was also pretty helpful.
Got it. Got it. Okay, cool. So basically, we helped you with your application materials, your networking, your technical, your behaviorals. Those are kind of like the four broad buckets of things then, right?
Right.
Okay. So then, what ended up happening for summer 2019? Because again, you came to me junior year, right?
Mhm.
You didn't really have an offer locked up yet, so you were trying to find something for your junior summer, which would have been summer 2019, right?
Right.
Did you end up getting into investment banking?
I did not my junior year, and that was mainly because I got an offer at BlackRock to work with their ACS team
Yeah.
around October, and by that time, I hadn't locked an investment banking internship. And kind of due to the accelerated timeline, most of the big banks were closing down.
Mhm.
So I kind of just decided to just forego investment banking recruiting and to look for some kind of fall or spring internship, um, and just go with BlackRock for that summer.
Got it. Okay, so you took the bird in hand and stopped recruiting for summer 2019 internships, but you weren't really giving up on investment banking just yet, right? You were just gonna kind of take a different route to get in.
Right. Hmm.
So, what was the strategy that we came up with so that you could have another shot at it? Like, can you tell people roughly at a high level, like, what you thought about doing?
Yeah. So I'd say we came up with uh, two strategies, and the first one being that I would take a semester off and come back for summer 2020, and probably do an internship during that semester off. And the other one being that I would just do a master's in finance and do another summer internship.
Got it. Got it. Okay. So basically, buy you more time so that you can recruit again for summer 2020.
Hmm.
Okay. Got it. So then, like, what did you end up doing ultimately?
Um, I ended up just, I guess, I didn't take a semester off. I did, I guess, recruit for a off-cycle internship just in case,
Mhm.
and I did get an offer from a mid-sized lower middle market boutique out in Los Angeles, but I decided to forego that internship
Mhm.
and just kind of focus on recruiting for the summer and doing a master's degree. At the moment, I'm honestly still kind of debating between whether or not a master's is worth it or not, but I think that just having this summer internship locked up is kind of a good thing to have in the bag.
Yep. Yep. Okay. And so then you kept recruiting, right?
Hmm.
And then you recruited for summer 2020. And this time around, you did end up getting an offer, obviously, or we wouldn't be speaking right now, right? Uh,
Right.
can you tell people what bank you're going to be going to?
Yeah. So I'm gonna be going to Jefferies this summer.
Okay, awesome. And so, like, what do you? I mean, obviously, Jefferies is a great bank. What do you think made the difference for you the second time around? Like versus the first time around when you were recruiting for someone in 2019, didn't really work out, right? But this time around, you were able to end up at a bank like Jefferies. And you also had other offers besides Jeffrey too, right? Like this was just the one that you ended up taking.
Right. Yeah. I think that, the thing that made the biggest difference this time around was probably just being aware of what the process was kind of like. Because this was my second time going around this rodeo, and I mean, just being aware of like the networking game, which was honestly probably one of the biggest parts to me doing a lot better this time around. I think just being able to pounce on it early and connecting with others and having I guess like one or two contacts at the main banks that I was recruiting at was pretty helpful.
Got it. Got it. Okay. And so, how do you feel about where you're at now and like the outcome that you were able to accomplish? Like, as you look back on this, I guess, what year plus journey that you've been on, um, how are you feeling currently?
I'm definitely feeling a lot better. It was incredibly stressful um, time to get this investment banking internship, and I honestly probably made it a lot harder than it had to be. And I'm just glad that it's over. But I'm still looking into what I can do in the future, and the journey, the grind never really stops.
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of trying to figure out, I guess, where I want to go from here on out.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, the one common trait of all successful people, I think, is that they never rest on their laurels, right? Like they're never satisfied, right? Um,
Mhm.
they're grateful but not satisfied, right? Or they're not easily content, right? As soon as they set a goal and they achieve it, then they are almost immediately setting a new goal, like a new, bigger and better goal to see like what was the next thing or the next mountain they have to climb, right?
Right, right.
So that I feel like you have a little bit of that kind of mentality as well, which is just a good thing. Like it's probably it's gonna be the thing that helps you, like takes you very far essentially in life.
Hopefully.
So I guess, what advice do you have for our listeners that are listening right now? I mean, as someone who maybe didn't come from the most typical background, right? Whether it's the fact that, whether it's what you majored in or the fact that you started a bit later to, you having to um, maybe recruit more than once. Like I would say, like, it's not like you failed the first time, but like, you took BlackRock and you didn't get investment banking right away. And a lot of times I feel like people would have just kind of given up at that point, but
Mhm.
right? And so,
Mhm.
what advice do you have for people who are maybe kind of in a similar situation as you right now? Like they're trying to grind it out, and it's been a long process. Maybe it's been over a year. Like, what would you say to people like that?
I would say that honestly, it's a lot of work. You have to know what you're getting yourself into. If you're a non-finance major or someone who hasn't had that much finance or even econ experience, like you're gonna have to like dive into like understanding what's going on in the markets and learning your technicals obviously. And if you're gonna sign up for a program like this, you have to actually do the work. You can't expect results to happen without actually listening to Sam and doing whatever he gives you for each module. I think that if you're just gonna float around the program and not do the work, you're not gonna get any results. It's not gonna be like a magical program that gets you an offer. There's a lot of work that goes into it, so you have to be serious about recruiting for investment banking, and you really do have to do whatever it takes, because there's been a lot of times where I felt like I wasn't going to get an offer or have any success, but it eventually does turn around. You just have to keep putting in the effort, continue networking, and you can't really give up until you get an offer. And even when you do get an offer, um, you're going to notice that you're going to be able to accelerate a lot of offers down the line. And, that just comes with having an offer and just leveraging it. And from there, it gets even, it's definitely a little less stressful, but it gets a little more stressful in a different way in the sense that, now you have multiple interviews coming up. And, in such a short amount of time, you kind of have to prepare for it. So it's stressful in the sense that, you're prepping pretty hardcore for a ton of interviews, but it's nice in the sense that, you don't have to worry about where you're going for this summer because you have something locked up.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I mean, I 100% agree with what you just said, right? And I think it's a good reminder for everyone, which is sometimes this is rare, but in the rare instances that I've seen it, like once in a long while, someone will come into the program and they'll think that just by virtue of them enrolling themselves in this program and having invested in this program, now the job is just going to come to them, right? Like investing in this program in and of itself doesn't really get you anything, right? It just
Mhm.
gets you a seat in the program and it just gets you access to us and for us to help you out and give you feedback and things like that. But at the end of the day, like you got to go out and execute on the things that we teach you, and you got to show up, you got to do the work, and you got to get the job, right? Like, one thing I always tell people is, I can't make it easy for you, right? Because I wouldn't say, and you probably didn't feel like that was an easy process, right, Michael? You've been,
No, it's hard.
but what I'm doing is just making it simple for you, right? Like I'm simplifying things so that you don't have to, be second guessing yourself all the time, wondering if you're doing the right thing, like figuring out answers to questions that you don't really know, like being
Mhm.
stuck constantly. Like we're removing all of those things so that it becomes a more direct path from where you are currently to where you're trying to go. But like you still got to make that journey, right? Uh,
Right.
and it's kind of like another analogy that I always give is like it's like sports, right? Like I'm just a coach and you're the player, right?
Mhm.
At the end of the day, players are the ones that win the game, right?
Mhm.
Coaches just coach and they set you up for success to the best of their abilities, but they can't go out and play the game for you, right? They
Right.
can't they can't hit the buzzer beater. They can't score the goal, and so you're the one who's got to hold up that end of the bargain. And so I feel like in your case, you absolutely did that. Like you were one of the hardest working candidates that I think I've worked with. Like you never gave up. Sometimes you did, get down on yourself when things got tough, which I think is like a very normal human thing to do, right? But to your credit, like every time as soon as we talk through it, sometimes they'll give you some tough love, and then you will basically pick right back up, and then just kept on trucking, right? And so
Right.
I always knew that, yeah, as long as you didn't give up and you kept doing the things that we were preaching, like you were eventually going to get to a very good outcome. And so I'm super happy for you. And obviously, Jefferies is a phenomenal firm, and I think you're going to have a great time there. You're going to learn a lot. And, I'm excited to see what else is in store for you in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate all the help, man. It's definitely been really, really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it was my pleasure. And so, look, for those of you who are listening to this right now, if you are, having trouble with recruiting, if you're struggling to figure it out on your own, if you've been grinding for a while, and maybe kind of like what Michael was doing on his own before this program, and you feel like you just need that extra push and extra motivation and the extra feedback to kind of put you over the top, right? And you're the type of person who doesn't expect everything to just be handed to you, but um, you're willing to put in the work and do what's necessary, but you just need that little bit of guidance to make the difference. Then you will be a very good fit for our program, right? So I would encourage you, if that's the case, to reach out and schedule a free strategy session with our team. And on this strategy session, like basically what we'll do together is just go, kind of like learn about your situation, what it is that you've been doing, what's working, what's not working, and what are your goals, where are you trying to go, and then together figure out what is the gap currently and how can we help you close that gap, right? And whatever that looks like, we can discuss what we think is best for you. It may or may not be, working with us. It's not always for you to like. Not every single person should be working with us, and we tell a lot of people not to work with us. In fact, but what we'll always do is have your best interest in mind and tell you what we think you should do or what we would do if we were in your shoes. So if that sounds of interest to you guys, I would encourage you guys again to book this free call, and you can do so at www.wallstreetmastermind.com/apply. The street in Wall Street is abbreviated, so it's abbreviated to ST. So the URL is again wallstmastermind.com/apply. Okay, and yeah, I look forward to speaking with as many of you guys as possible. I mean, we do have a limited calendar, and so it is first come first serve. But if you are recruiting right now, as I'm sure you already know, it's a very tight timeline for most people, right? Like usually by the time people figure out that they want to do investment banking, there's usually not a whole lot of time left to do everything that they need to do. So if you want to accelerate that process, that's kind of what we're here for. So reach out to the team, talk to us. At a minimum, you walk away with a lot of clarity on what it is that you need to do. Maybe you can even go and implement it on your own and see a lot of success. Definitely seen people do that as well. So, yep, that's my little spiel for you guys to kind of end this conversation. And again, Michael, I just want to thank you for taking the time today on a Sunday to talk to everyone. And don't be a stranger. I mean, I'm sure you won't be. We'll be in touch. Um,
Right.
and keep me posted on how your summer goes.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. And yeah, if you need me to come back and talk anytime, I'm always willing to do so.
Yeah, man. I might take you up on that in the future for sure. All right.
All right.
Cool, guys. Well, thank you, Michael. And then for the rest of you guys for listening, thank you guys for tuning in. As always, we'll be back with more of these in the future. I have several more clients lined up who's going to share their success with you guys, but I just need time to get through all of them. All right. So thanks, guys. That'll be it for today, and we'll talk to you again soon.